The 717th edition of the MMA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code MMASGPN to get a 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000. And we're also brought to you by Rebet, a new sportsbook available in 45 states. Download Rebet in your app store and use promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit match up to $100. And finally, we're brought to you by Rhythm. Start crushing the college football and NFL seasons with Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM.
Howdy ho, degenerinos, and welcome to episode 717 of the MMA Gambling Podcast and the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. I should have my dedications right in front of me, but of course I forgot. It's someone from YouTube who liked our content, who praised us for having our PFL coverage, PFL Europe.
PFL Europe. You love your PFL Europe coverage.
MMA QRM. Thank you, MMA QRM. Yeah, Gumby insisted on PFL, so we did it. So obviously people enjoy it. So actually, you do enjoy it by the numbers. The numbers say you people are PFL Taurus stands. So who would have guessed that? Anyhow, I'm stumbling along. Let's get jumping here. I am Big Body Taco Fox, and we have the very last UFC event of the year to cover today. UFC Fight Night Covington versus Buckley, aka UFC Tampa. It's going down in Tampa. You guessed it. This coming Saturday evening. Not really. Gumby and I actually had not an argument, but a discussion about this off air about the strength of this card. It's not up to snuff for an arena event in my eyes, but you know, Gumby is a little Dana White Jr. over here. He thinks that it's a great fight card. So maybe that's the only thing we'll differ on here. We'll have to wait and see.
What's your model for what a regional card should look like? You know what? Because back in the day, this is a banger of a regional card, like pre-pandemic. Because like when they were going to like freaking Bismarck in Boise and like stuff like that.
It's a big market though. Miami's, Tampa's.
But they don't go to the small markets anymore. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you're right. Like under the old model, you know, if this was UFC Norfolk, back when they had UFC Norfolk, we'd have been wicked excited. But if this followed up UFC Norfolk, there was a UFC Norfolk, wasn't there?
I think there was, yeah.
I want to say Poirier was on that one though.
I think he was.
Yeah. So, so maybe a bad example, but like, let's say there was UFC Dover, and like UFC Dover had like some lame ones on it, and then Tampa was after it. Yeah, we'd expect Tampa to be hyped, but now Tampa is UFC Dover. Like that's what we're getting for it. Is like this is what a regional card is now when it's not on pay-per-view.
I want to know when you decide to act to show everyone you're from Massachusetts, and when you don't decide, because you threw Wicked in there, and usually you don't.
That's only because we get pay-per-views up here, kid.
All right, Wicked. It's going to be a wicked awesome fight card. So yeah, Covington versus Buckley is our main event. We're not covering that today though. No. You have to wait for that stunning main event. Today's all the prelims. That's where the money can be had on the prelims. So we got 7 prelim fights. Some of our favorites, or at least one of our favorite fighter, or a favorite of the Discord, is fighting on this here card. So a lot of old fighters on both halves of this fight card. We'll have to see if we're going to fade the oldies, or if we're going to jump right in and bet the oldies, or if we're going to be riding the fence. So we'll get on to that after. I'll remind you, make sure you download our app, the SGPN app. It's completely free, and you have easy access to all our shows and all of our pick pages. And of course, Gumby and my daily articles, and everyone else's daily articles. Gumby hit a plus 1,000 play on Dick last night. Grady Dick scored first. Gumby had him at plus 1,000. So there you go. He can't give up. You can't get enough of that Dick. Make sure you download our app. It's free wherever you get your apps. So Gumby, you're up a lot of units now on that first bucket stuff, aren't you?
56 on the year. Yeah, it was. I think it was 46 when we were talking, or 45. No, 46 when we were talking for our regional card episodes. But yeah, back-to-back days. We had a 9.5 to 1 on Brooke Lopez and a 10 to 1 on Grady Dick. And obviously with the NBA Cup, we got less games to choose from, but I still think some pretty juicy stuff there. So make sure you check out that coverage on sportsgamblingpodcast.com.
apparently the books don't do the all the research that Gumby does, because Gumby keeps beating
They
the
just
books
put the
at
guys
these
who
fights.
shoot. I figured out what they do. They just put like they basically rank the teams by like who's gonna score. What team will probably score first based on the tip, and then after that they just rank who has the most shot attempts. It has nothing to do with like matchups or things like that. It's just shot attempts. So yeah, lots of things to be exploited there, as well as on regional MMA and prelim MMA.
Yeah, you got to imagine they don't get as much volume of bets there, so the lines aren't super sharp and smart. So
they'll get more from our network.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why Gumby kills it on the regional MMA stuff, or the non-UFC stuff, because not quite as sharp. Except for when our Discord gets in there. All right, let's get in on UFC Fight Night, Covington versus Buckley, aka UFC Tampa, Florida, this Friday at night, 7 p.m. is the start time for the prelims. ESPN Plus is the channel. Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida. 13 fights. As I mentioned, we're doing the first 7 on the card today, and then tomorrow you'll get the main card and all our fancy dancy plays. So one of our favorites I alluded to, that would be Josefine Lindgren Knutsson, if you want to be exact. She's from Sweden. She's up against Piera Rodriguez, the woman that we just questioned whether or not she's still in the UFC a few episodes ago. She's from Venezuela. And yes, she is, in fact, still in the UFC. And she's fighting on the opener of this year fight card. Let's tell you about her first. Rodriguez. La Fiera, the Beast, is the nickname. 9-2 with 5 knockouts. She's been submitted 1 time. 2-2 in the UFC. She has lost 2 straight, so she may not be in the UFC for much longer. It's the season to be getting cut, especially if you're on a 3-fight losing streak. So she could be fighting for her UFC career at this point on Saturday night. She's not won since October 2022. She was the LFA champion before this foray into the big leagues. Used to fight up at flyweight, 3 inches of reach over Knutsson. She has better grappling stats than Knutsson, and she has outstruck her opponents in the UFC. Hasn't gotten her very far, but she has outstruck them by 0.8 strikes per minute. She's at plus 190. Little Thunder versus the Beast. Little Thunder Knutsson is 8-0 with 1 knockout. She's 2-0 in the UFC, 1-0 contender series, 1-0 on road to UFC. She's done it all. She just needs to get on a season of tough, and then she'll have the full UFC repertoire in her hand here. They made her jump through some hoops before they actually signed her here. 27-5 as a pro kickboxer, 2-time gold medalist on the world stage in kickboxing, and also a champion in professional kickboxing. 4 years younger than Rodriguez, better striking stats, more active landing strikes than Rodriguez. She has outstruck her opponents. This will count her UFC fight, her fights, her contender series fight, and a road 2 fights by almost 3 strikes a minute. She's at plus 2.8, minus 225. Gumby, do the honors.
Yeah, I'm going to start with taking Josefine Knutsson. First of all, huge Josefine Knutsson fan, so that makes it a little bit easier to take. But also, I will just say this, like, the volume is just too much for me. Mm-hmm. Like, if you look at her last fight, she threw almost 300 strikes in her last fight, and that's a 15-minute fight. I mean, she was throwing so heavily in that fight, and she landed, I want to say, like 125. I want to say it was like 125 in her last fight. Like, she just lets go all the time. And then the best part about her is when people try to close the distance, press her up against the cage, they don't have a good, like, that is not an easy path to victory against Josefine Knutsson, because she's so tough in the clinch, both by the strike she throws, how she reverses positions, how she holds you there. Like, she beat and I know, like, it's impressive that she has 2 UFC wins and a road to the UFC win, and she beat Isis Verbeek in Dana White's contender series. I think she beat Yi Diamso in road to the UFC too. So, like, all high level wins, but like maybe her best win is beating Jacinta Austin in UAE Warriors, where she largely controlled the position against a much longer, much stronger woman in Jacinta Austin. So, like, for somebody who's done that to really high level competition inside and outside the UFC, I just can't see how she doesn't do that to Piera Rodriguez. So, yeah, I'll take Josefine Knutsson here. Probably a sneaky play here if you're looking for, like, daily fantasy tips too. Both, like the underdog variety where you can take the higher than. But also, like, if you have to set a lineup here too, like, she's gonna throw a ton of strikes.
Yeah, she's not going to finish. More than likely, she's not going to finish her opponent either. She's purely, put the volume on you. Maybe someday she's
like a better version of Fire Fist. Yeah, like that's the way I see her. She's like,
Yep.
she's pissed and quick with the hands, not really looking to put anybody away. She's a little bit more physically strong and a little bit more technically sound on the feet.
Yep. Maybe she'll grow into some power. She's 28, so there's still time for that. I'd like to see some more finishes from her. I'm sure that's why she didn't. It took her, multiple times for the UFC actually to sign her, because they want blood all the time. But yeah, Knutsson is the pick here. If you want to get fancy, more than likely by decision. If you want a better line, I assume the line would be better. Probably not much better though. I haven't had a chance to check it yet, but I'm sure it's not prop of the week worthy for me. But
no,
we shall see. No. All right, well, we're going to the men's side. We're going up a weight, 2 weight classes actually. We're going to bantamweight. Davey Grant from the United Kingdom versus Ramon Taveras from United States of America. This is 3 5-minute rounds, 135. Dangerous Davey Grant, 15-7, 4 knockouts, 9 submissions. He has been submitted 4 times, 6-6 in the UFC, 2-1 over his last 3, 2-3 over his last 5. He did lose his last fight. That was back in July of 2023, so he has been on the shelf for a while. That actually matters stats-wise. If fighters who have been off at least a year, 45% win rate in their first fight back. So, less than 50%. So 2-0 on the Ultimate Fighter, and then you lost in the finals of the season he was on. Was a regional champ, 2008 pro MMA debut. More active landing strikes than Taveras and better grappling stats than Taveras. He also has outstruck his opponents by almost a strike a minute. He's at plus 0.95, and he's at plus 106 on the betting boards. The Savage, Ramon Taveras, 10-2, 5 knockouts, 3 submissions. He's been knocked out twice. 1-0 in the UFC. He's won 2 straight and 6 of 7. He has missed weight twice before at bantamweight, so keep an eye on that. That's another stat that we know. Fighters that miss weight tend to lose the fight that they miss weight for. So you may want to wait till Friday if you're getting in on his line, or even want to get on the other side of the line as well. Regional champion, used to fight at featherweight. An inch of reach over Grant, 9 years younger, which I think is a big factor, especially at bantamweight. He has been outstruck in the UFC, though, by 0.78 strikes per minute. He's at minus 120. Tight one. I guess a tight one on the boards as well. Did some research. It took me a little bit to figure it out, but I'm going with Taveras here. The age, like I said, is a huge factor, especially for a lighter weight class. And I think Taveras is better on the feet and probably hits harder too at this point. So give me Ramon Taveras here over Davey Grant.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Taveras as well. And it pains me because you're not going to find a guy who loves Davey Grant as much as I am probably out there. I'm a huge fan, both having interviewed him and just loved his time on The Ultimate Fighter. Like, he was a really fun fighter to watch on The Ultimate Fighter. And like, the problem is exactly what you said. He's kind of gotten old. That's tough at bantamweight. The style he's developed as he's old is to like let his hands go for a while until he needs his grappling. Because like earlier in his career, he was like, grappling on the forefront. And he's kind of abandoned that almost the same way as Jim Miller has, maybe out of necessity, maybe out of reinvention. I'm not sure what. But like, and while it's worked in some cases, right? He knocked out Martin Day there. Was it Martin Day that he knocked out on like the first fight in the pandemic? And like, that's great. And he picked up some wins that way. He's just not going to do that to Taveras. And by the time he decides to wrestle, it might be too late. The only thing causing me a little hesitation here on Taveras, because I do think he's the better fighter, longer, faster, younger, all those types of things. He has had some like real crazy stuff happen in his life. I don't know if you follow that dude on social media.
No, I haven't heard any stories.
He had somebody show up at his house and try to kill him in the middle of the night.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah. And like, he's like, so I'm moving out of Jacksonville, which like, I hope he has, like, I hope he's in a safe place. I don't know any of the background story of that, but I know that got posted on social media. And like, my hesitancy to put money on a fighter who is going through like some real life stuff, especially a week after we saw Anthony Smith deal with some like real life stuff in a very bad way. Like, this is obviously, I mean, it's scary, but it's like not as sad as Anthony Smith stuff, but like, man, do I not want to be on the side of something like that. But that being said, he's the better fighter here. As long as his headspace is clear enough, I like him to beat Davey Grant.
To be fair, most MMA fighters have crazy things going on in their lives, right?
Not that crazy, though. I don't, man. I think maybe we're getting heavy-handed if we said that crazy.
Maybe. Yeah, I forgot. We were supposed to talk about UFC 310, but whatever. Yeah.
Anthony
Smith,
happened a week ago.
Yeah. But yeah, Anthony Smith needs to go away for his own sake. So yeah, Taveras is both our picks there. All right, before we move on, let me tell you about Underdog Fantasy. We aren't in on any underdogs yet, but more than likely we're going to be in on some. Gumby's on this show, for crying out loud. He's going to get on a bunch of dogs eventually. Underdog Pick'em is one of the biggest menus for all sports. You can win up to 1,000 times your entry with Underdog streaks. Underdog is always making it easier to win with profit boosts and gimme pick'ems. NFL, college football, college basketball, MMA, NBA, NASCAR, and more. And you can now use specials and boosts and all flexed entries. Gumby probably has to play for you right now. I'm guessing.
Yeah, we got MMA this weekend, and it's the last one of the year, so we better get in on some underdog with it. And I'm gonna take Michael Johnson is fighting on this card. I don't know if you know this. Michael Johnson.
I do know this.
1,000,000 years old. However, I'm still taking the higher than 38.5 significant strikes in his fight. I do think whether or not this fight goes, incredibly long or not, he should still be able to find 38.5 strikes. So give me Michael Johnson.
Nothing. That is nothing. Wasn't Michael? Weren't we against each other on a Michael Johnson play in the past? I think I remember arguing about Michael Johnson. I think you were in and I was out. I think possibly.
You mean, is that after his last win? I was in on him winning?
Probably, and I was out on him winning, more than likely. Sign up with the promo code MMA SGPN to claim your special pick and first time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. That's UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code MMA SGPN. And we are brought to you by Rebet, R-E-B-E-T. Rebet is a new social sportsbook available in 45 states. There are plenty of betting opportunities available on Rebet. It's easy to use and great for people in states where traditional sportsbooks may be restricted. Download Rebet in the App Store and use the promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit match up to $100. That's Rebet, promo code SGPN. I didn't slander the good folks in Utah this time doing that ad read stuff. Remember, I said that.
Did anybody from Utah come after you?
No. So maybe they don't. Maybe they don't gamble. Maybe I was right. All right. Will we stay on the same page? We got another women's fight. Next on the docket. This is down at flyweight. Miranda, Maverick, United States. Jamey-Lyn Horth from the Great White North, Canada. 3 5-minute rounds, 125 pounds. It rhymes. It sure does. I will tell you about Horth first. 7-1, 3 knockouts, 2 submissions. Never been finished in a fight. 2-1 in the UFC. Won her last fight, was the LFA champion and a regional champion. Before, used to fight up at bantamweight, 4 inches of height. Everyone's taller than Maverick, though. That's not really a surprise. 4 inches of height, only an inch of reach over Maverick. She's outstruck her UFC opponents by 0.38 strikes per minute, plus 370. Fear the Maverick is 14-5, 1 knockout, 7 submissions. Never been finished in a fight. 7-3 in the UFC. She's won 3 straight and 5 of 6. She went 6-2 in Invicta. Used to fight down at strawweight, 7 years younger than Horth. Better striking stats, more active landing strikes, and better grappling stats than Horth. She's outstruck her UFC opponents by 1.13 strikes per minute, minus 450. Wide line, I was kind of surprised how wide it was. Horth, I think, generally gets slept on, but we'll let you pick first.
I think she gets slept on too, but not to the tune that I'd even consider against Miranda Maverick. Mm-hmm. Like this is somebody who, she is so tough and can be so durable and like gritty. And she made that fight with Veronica Hardy look close, which in retrospect is maybe not as good as it once looked. She lost a split decision of Veronica Hardy, who's coming off of looking pretty bad. And then, a split decision win over Ivana Petrovic. But like in that fight with Petrovic, she gave up a lot of takedowns. She gave up a lot of position. And like, I don't know about you, but like, I don't think of Petrovic wrestling like I think of Mavericks.
No.
Like Maverick is an absolute animal in there. And like, you mentioned the height and the reach and all those types of things. And like, you're right. She's not tall. She's not particularly tall, but it's because she's so strong. Like this is a woman who is maybe one of the shortest in her division and has no chance of making the weight class below it without cutting one of her arms off because she's so buff. So like, I think the physicality is usually what's best about Jamey-Lyn Horth. And she had like a little bit of trouble with that with Petrovic. So like, what is she gonna do with Miranda? Like Maverick is gonna have all the positions in this fight. Give me Miranda Maverick here.
Yeah, this makes it easy for Gumby to fade the Canadian here. I'm fading my fellow Canadian as well. Maverick's always been a favorite of mine, and she hasn't fought the greatest competition as of late, but her career seemed to have been going. Maybe not in the toilet, but it was headed in the wrong direction, and she's definitely turned things around as of late. So this is as Gummy said, a good matchup for her.
She did
And
beat Andrea Lee like a couple of fights ago.
yeah, another thing that didn't age well, but Andrea Lee's old now, so that's fine.
That's true.
Yeah. No, actually, Andrea Lee won the loser leaves home, loser leaves town match, didn't she? She fought Matana De La Rosa and she won, right? I think Andrea Lee won, and we were both against her. I think.
Nope, she lost to Montana De La Rosa.
Oh, really? Okay, maybe we were in on. Yeah. Okay. Whatever.
I'm always in on Montana De La Rosa.
Yeah, okay.
Be real for a second.
Let's be real, ladies and gentlemen. All right, she was on Tough, so he has no choice. All right.
She was on Tough. Her husband fought in the UFC too.
Yep. We're sticking with the lightweight classes, so that's why this the prelims are fun for the hardcore fans. Miles Johns versus Felipe Lima, U.S. versus Brazil, featherweight men's fight. Chapo Johns is 15-2 with 1 no contest, 4 knockouts, 2 submissions. Been knocked out once, submitted once, so finished in both of his losses. 6-2 with 1 no contest in the UFC. He has won 2 straight and gone 3-0 with 1 no contest over his last 4. He's not lost since February 2022. He's failed multiple drug tests. 1 for a steroid, 1 for Adderall, I believe. 1 no on Contender Series. LFA champion. Used to fight down at a bantamweight. 2014 Pro MMA debut. An inch of height over Lima. He's outstruck his opponents in the UFC by 0.74 strikes per minute, plus 225. Jungle Boy Lima, 13-1, 4 knockouts, 3 submissions. He's been submitted once. 1 no in the UFC. He's won 14 straight fights. Actually, he's only fought 14 times. He's won 13 straight fights. He lost his debut, and that was it. Won his last fight via submission, which was his UFC debut. He debuted August 2015. He lost that fight. He's not lost since. He was the Octagon champion before the UFC getting signed by the UFC on short notice. Multiple regional championships on his
mantle.
Correct. Get the shirt, sportsgamblingpockets.com/store. Get sticky with it. Used to fight at flyweight and bantamweight. 2 inches of reach over Johns, 4 years younger. Better grappling stats than Johns, based off one fight, though. He outstruck his opponent in his one fight by 0.62 strikes per minute, minus 265. We were high on him when he came into the UFC. I think we both picked against him, though, right?
In his first fight,
yeah.
Because we both like, and it was Naimov, too, Muhammad Naimov, who is, was a legit dude to have to be facing right out the gate. So, we both doubted him, but we noted that it was silly to doubt him.
Yes. Lima came through. Miles Johns, I've said it before, he seems like he should have more than 2 losses. He just seems like a guy who's never lived up to his hype, but I guess he's been winning fights. But yeah, I don't think he's going to win this one. Lima is just really, really good. Really, he's got decent experience too, despite being much younger than Johns. He showed us what he could do against a very good opponent in a short notice UFC debut. Now with the full camp against Johns, I think he can get the job done for us.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that Naimov fight, dude, he did have a semi-full camp because he was preparing for a fight in Octagon, which he then had to pull out of. It did shorten his camp up a little bit. So it wasn't like he came in there cold. But, with that being said, I think the thing that always impressed me about Felipe Lima is his ability to beat wrestlers. He went in there with Naimov, he scored a takedown, he got a rear naked choke. He stuffed a lot of Naimov's wrestling attempts, and maybe that's not even his best win. Like his best win might be Jonas Magard over in Octagon. Like Magard is, every bit UFC level, and he went in there and dealt with Magard's, tough wrestling abilities as well. So Miles Johns to me has always been kind of one-dimensional in that way. Like he's got power, right? Like I guess not purely one-dimensional, but his dimension of wrestling far exceeds all of his other dimensions. And I think knowing that, if he just gets stuffed a few times here by Lima and Lima gets his chance to let go, or heck, Lima could get his wrestling going. People sleep on how good his wrestling was until he took down Naimov. And so I just think there's too many ways for Lima to win. And the style that he's up against here is something he's dealt with before. So give me Felipe Lima. All
right. Jungle Boy. We are a team ride thus far. See if we keep it up with a men's featherweight bout. Sean Woodson, United States of America. Fernando Padilla from Mexico. 3 5-minute rounds. So we'll tell you about Padilla first. El Valiente, the Brave, is 16-5, 5 knockouts, 9 submissions. Never been finished himself. 2-1 in the UFC. He's won 4 of his last 5, including his last fight via submission. He was a regional champion. He used to fight up at lightweight. That would be 4 years younger than Woodson. More active landing strikes than Woodson. He's outstruck his opponents in the UFC by 1.23 strikes per minute, and he's at plus 140. The Sniper, Sean Woodson, 13-1-1, 3 knockouts, 1 submission. He's been submitted once. 6-1-1 in the UFC. He's won 3 straight, and he's gone 5-0-1 over his last 6. He's not lost since June 2020. 1-0 on Contender Series. Used to fight at lightweight and middleweight. 1 inch height, 2 inches reach over Padilla. Better striking stats than Padilla. He's outstruck his opponents in the UFC by 1.39 strikes per minute. He's at -155. So another kind of close line.
It's time for me to get in on a dog.
Okay.
It's Fernando Padilla time. Here's my thought process on this one. I think we've got 2 wildly lanky dudes for this division fighting each other. And I see one of them as a guy who has relied on that lankiness for a large portion of his career to make it work and to win fights. And another guy who can use it, has used it before, but doesn't need it. In Fernando Padilla. Fernando Padilla is happy to sit in the pocket with you and trade punches because he rolls with them fairly well. He's got really nasty stuff. He's also happy to mix it up on the ground with you. He's happy to shoot a takedown if he needs to. He actually comes from a grappling background. He was a 10th Planet guy, if you want to go way back. 10th Planet, Chihuahua, Mexico. And so, like, he comes from a 10th Planet background. He's coming off of a Dara's choke victory. Like, we've got a guy who is long and lanky and needs to be the long and lanky guy. And this may be the only time he's not able to be long and lanky, right? Because he's up against another guy who can do that as well. And the other guy doesn't rely on it as much as he does. So I like Fernando Padilla by being more versatile. I like his submission game. Wouldn't be surprised to see a club and sub here. Remember that one of Sean Woodson's 2 losses in the UFC did come from being knocked down by Julian Erosa, who's, by the way, not as lanky, maybe a touch more powerful than Padilla, and then locked up in a Dara's choke, which happens to be something Padilla is pretty damn good at. I specifically called the Vicente Luque Dara's choke last week. Would not be surprised if we see Fernando Padilla mimic that here too. I'll take Fernando Padilla.
Let's make it a team ride. Let's do it. This is one of the ones I was on the fence. I was going to go Woodson, but it makes more sense. As you said, the big thing is he's used to being the bigger, longer guy. He's barely any bigger or longer here. Will he be able to just stay safe for 15 minutes against a finisher? Woodson does not finish people, so he's going to have to like point fight his way here. And Padilla's got many ways to finish you. Almost as big as Woodson and younger as well to boot. So yeah, let's go it. Let's go team ride on Padilla. Let's do it.
Love it.
All right. Before we get to the last couple of fights we're going to cover today, you can tell you about MyBookie.ag. We're brought to you by MyBookie.ag. MyBookie has been running on SGPN for years. Check out their new and improved website. It's great on mobile. Plus, they have props for every single game and the live dealer casino. They even have new early cash out options available. Check out the MMA lines there. We're telling you what to bet. You go over to MyBookie and bet it. When you do get there, make sure you use our promo code SGPN for 100% deposit match up to $1,000 plus a $10 casino chip. That's MyBookie.ag, promo code SGPN. And SGPN's proud partner Rhythm is the #1 AI-powered sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models in seconds, get predictions for betting on money lines, spreads, totals, and props. Build your model, copy one of the top performing models from the leaderboard, or have Rhythm build you a model. You can now track props in the Rhythm app. NFL picks, NFL props, college football, college basketball, NBA. Rhythm has it all. Al Horford props, you may ask, do they have that? Of course they do. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpockets.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpockets.com/RITHMM. And now back to more winning plays at UFC Tampa. We are going up a weight class to lightweight. This is the heaviest weight class we're covering on today's show, which is pretty cool. Drakkar Klose, or Klose, he's from America. We'll call him Drakkar Klose. Joel Alvarez from Spain. 3 5-minute rounds. 2 very different body types in this fight. I'll tell you about Klose first. 15-2-1 with 6 knockouts. He's been knocked out 1 time. 9-2 in the UFC. He's won 4 straight and 7 of 8. He's a regional champ. 2014 pro MMA debut. Better grappling stats than Alvarez. He's outstruck his opponents in the UFC by 0.91 strikes per minute. He's at plus 310. El Fenomeno Alvarez, 21-3, 4 knockouts, 17 submissions. He's been knocked out twice. 6-2 in the UFC. He's won 2 straight and 6 of 7. All of those fights have been via finish. He's not lost since February 2022. He's missed weight twice before at 155, so keep an eye on that. Regional champion, used to fight down at featherweight somehow. 2013 pro MMA debut. Here's what I was telling you about body type. 6 inches taller, and then Klose, 7. Why am I saying close? Close. 7 inches of reach on him and 5 years younger. Better striking stats as well. He's outstruck his opponents in the UFC by 1.03 strikes per minute, minus 335. This is a tougher one than what the odds state it is. Don't you think, Gumby?
I think it's a lot closer than the odds state.
Yeah.
I would agree with you. This seems like a trap for a parlay buster.
I'm going close. I'm doing it. Wow. I'm going close. Yeah, I changed my mind.
Crazy.
I went against Alvarez last time too, and you thought I was crazy. And did it pan out? No. I'm going close anyhow.
It panned out really poorly. In fact, it was like one of the most one-sided fights I think I ever remember watching.
The grappling and the strength.
He knocked out Els Brenner last time, who's got a head made of freaking concrete.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say he doesn't have crazy power, but it is true. He's grown into his power a bit, so may not be the smartest.
Does it have crazy power? He knocked out a guy.
No, I said he's growing. He's growing into his power.
It's fully on grown into it. It's there.
All right,
the dude weighs like 3,000 pounds. I think like he is so big for this division, and like. The funniest thing is you're talking about like him growing into his power, which by the way, it's grown past tense already.
He's got 4 knockouts. He's not a knockout artist yet. He may still be.
He's got 4 knockouts. That's only because he's not on the feet very often either. Yeah. Like most of his fights, he just takes people down and subs them. And that's my other problem here is that like, how durable do we think Drakkar Klose is? Because like, yes, he's been in some really tough fights, but also do we remember he got knocked out by Beneil Dariush? Like the heavy-handed Beneil Dar. Yeah, okay. So the only time he's ever been stopped. Should we run down the list of big, heavy hands that he's fought so far? Is it because we're worried? We're worried about the hands of. Are we worried about the hands of Joe Selecki or Christos Iagos or Lando? I guess Lando Venata maybe.
Yeah.
Devin Powell, the submission artist from Connecticut. Dude, he's just not fighting a lot of guys who throw hard. And, I cherry picked a little bit. Bobby Green's in there, but Bobby Green hit him with some wrestling and outpointed him on the feet. And so, like, he's not fighting a bunch of big power punchers in there. And now he's fighting a dude who's huge and packs a huge punch. That worries me. The submission skills worry me. You're just in there with, like, a certified finisher who can finish you at any time. I would want no part of Drakkar Klose here.
I don't know why I'm always against Joel Alvarez because
I don't know, dude.
I like him and I think
it's because he's got submissions on his record and you hate.
No, maybe it's still a better play than Clay Guida, right? Let's move on to the main event of the prelims, shall we? Michael Johnson, United States of America, Ottman, bag of potatoes or backpack, I guess it was, right? Of potatoes. Azaitar, I think it was a duffel bag. Duffel bag of potatoes. The Potato Man versus the Menace. All right. The Bulldozer is his official nickname for Azaitar. 13-2, 10 knockouts, 2 submissions. He's been knocked out twice, 2-2 in the UFC, 0-2 over his last 2, both of them via knockout or TKO. He has not fought since July of 2023. He's not won since September 2020. That was the potato. No, he got cut before the potato fight, didn't he?
He got cut and whatever.
Yeah. And then they realized that he's royalty in Morocco, so they brought him back. They probably were persuaded to bring him back. I used to fight at welterweight, regional champion, 2014 Pro MMA debut. 4 years younger than Johnson, more active on strikes than Johnson, and he has a positive strike differential of 0.77 strikes per minute. He's at plus 160. Dennis the Menace, Michael the Menace, actually, Johnson, 22-19. 9 knockouts, 2 submissions. He's been knocked out 3 times, submitted 9 times, 14-15 in the UFC. One of the graybeards on this here fight card. Win over his last 5 fights. Used to fight at lightweight, as missweight before at featherweight. He went 4-0 on the Ultimate Fighter. He's got multiple regional championships on his
mantle.
Correct. Get our shirts. Get all our shirts. Get all our merch. sportsgamblingpodcast.com/store. 2008 Pro MMA debut. 2 inches height, 2 inches reach over Azaitar. He's got better grappling stats than Azaitar, and he's outstruck his opponents by 0.44 strikes per minute. He's at minus 175. Gumby is finishing us off here.
So first of all, did you already know there's a Dennis the Menace that was in the UFC?
Yes. Dennis the Menace. Why can't it's not silver. It's not
his picture's on a poster right over here next.
It's not Bazooka. It's Dennis Bermuda. Yes. WEC never died too, right?
No, he was on the Ultimate Fighter.
Okay. Sorry, he co-main evented what?
UFC Long Island, which I covered one time.
Nice.
So with that being said, I'm taking Michael Johnson. Can't believe I'm doing it. Can't believe I'm doing it at favorite money. But my God,
we were. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you were in on him last time and I was not. So yeah, go ahead.
I just the way Azaitar looked this is more of a fate of Azaitar than it is of a play on Johnson. The way he looked against, what was it, Francisco Prado he fought last time? Like he looked like he had 2 minutes of gas in his tank. Like he got it like
potatoes.
It was like an exhaustion TKO 4 minutes into the fight. And you're like, well, that shouldn't be happening. And like, say what you want about Michael Johnson at this point, and maybe he's gotten beaten into a pulp at certain points in his career, but like he's always kind of been like a dude who's got a second gear and is like kind of durable, right? Like he's always been a guy who could reach back for more. And I mean, like, how long did he hang out in that Gaethje fight? And granted, that probably took 10 years off of his life, but like, he's always hung around in those kinds of fights. And for me in this one, I think that plays up really heavily against somebody like Ottman. So I'm going to take Michael Johnson in 2024 to win an MMA fight as a favorite.
Yeah, I learned my lesson. I'll take him as well. I was up to, shortly before we broke down this fight, going to take Azaitar. But yeah, as you said, he's looked pretty crummy. Either too many potatoes or not enough potatoes. Potatoes are starchy carbs. They should, he should have a lot of gas. Maybe switch the potatoes to sweet potatoes. That may be a better choice for him. But yeah, Johnson my pick as well. He might be old, but he's looked okay. It's not like he's really looked much different.
I want to just say that one of my favorite glowing recommendations of a fighter ever, he might be old, but he looks kind of okay, is the best recommendation I've ever heard.
You're going to hear that again tomorrow. Very good chance. You're going to hear that tomorrow about a fighter.
He's kind of old, but he looks kind of okay.
He has, though. He hasn't fallen off.
I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm
no,
just
it's
saying,
true.
Like, when you're trying to give a glowing recommendation for a fighter, you're like, he may be freaking really old, but he's like also sort of okay at fighting.
Do we really need a glowing recommendation for either of these guys in this matchup? Probably not. So Johnson is both our picks here. All right, let's recap and then we'll get out of your orifices. Both have Johnson. He has Alvarez. I, for some reason, have Klose. I gave you my reasoning.
He is tough. I'll give him that.
Yeah,
and I think the line
underrated dudes too. Yeah. Padilla, we're both in on. Lima, after I put Gumby's name down, he is locked in now. We're both in on Lima, both in on Maverick, both in on Taveras, both in on Knutsson, and we're done. All right, we're back tomorrow, though. In the meantime, we shall be in the Discord, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Discord. We shall be checking out the comments on YouTube at MMA Gambling Podcast. Gumby shall be checking our account on Twitter, SGPN MMA. He's Gumby Vreeland there. I am Jeff Fox Writer there. I am Jeff Fox Writer on Instagram. You should check out my Substack and, at the very least, enter my free pick'em contest for this UFC event and pretty much every UFC event. It's at moneymma.substack.com. You should listen to Gumby, more Gumby. Top Turtle MMA podcast. Haven't heard it yet this week, but he promises 3 guests, I believe, this week, right?
Yeah, Fernando Padilla, who we talked about a little bit earlier on in the show, an underdog we really like, as well as Ashley Barrett and Natalie Salcedo from Invicta.
Ashley Smashley. So there you go. Check that out. And of course, we can be found all our writing at sportsgamblingpodcast.com, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/store. So you can get all your gear and merch, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon to get yourself some extra content. We shall be back tomorrow. It'll be Little Thunder, Jeff Fox, the Bulldozer, Gumby Vreeland, and we shall talk to you then. Bye.